What's up guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. This week's video is sponsored by the app Quid, and I'll talk more about that later, but I really appreciate them sponsoring this episode. The first question is from the Screen Avenger, and he wants to know how I think the Darth Maul Obi-Wan duel is going to go down in next week's episode of Rebels. Honestly, I kind of hope they don't fight. I feel like Maul, I think all signs are pointing to Maul wanting to kill Obi-Wan and have one final duel. But at the same time, I think he already got his revenge when he killed Satine. So for him to continue chasing after Obi-Wan, I just feel like that's very misguided of him. And he might be misguided, and that's okay, but I think it would be cool if he were really hunting after Darth Sidious. That's who he should really be mad at. So I think it would be just far less predictable if he approached Obi-Wan to make amends and ask him to help him fight the Sith. I think that's a far more interesting way to go. And after all this time, to just have Maul and Obi-Wan fight again and just like have Maul dead in an episode, that seems just too predictable for me, and I kind of hope they go in a different direction. Now that we've seen Dutch Vander pop up in Star Wars Rebels, Sazerall asks who else we might see in animated form. I would love to see Red Leader Garvin Drace pop up just like Gold Leader, but I think what would really be cool is Cassian and K2SO. Even if it were just a background like visual cameo where we could just see them and didn't interact with them, I think that would be really awesome. Although seeing K2 and Chopper interact, that would be hilarious, I think, and I'd love to see something like that, but that makes sense to me because we know for sure at least Cassian is part of the rebellion at that point in time. Mark Zebro Jr. wants to know if we might see Boba Fett in Season 4 of Star Wars Rebels. I think we're definitely going to see Boba Fett in the canon again at some point, and Rebels would be the perfect place to do it. They were going to have a Boba Fett Cad Bane arc in Season 7 of the Clone Wars where Cad Bane was kind of training Boba Fett, so maybe they're still together at this point in time. I think we'll get that story in some form sooner or later, so maybe they could kind of tell it in Star Wars Rebels and we would get both Cad Bane and Boba Fett in Season 4. Don't really know for sure, but I think that would be a good place to tell the story they were going to tell, or at least a version of it from the Clone Wars. Josh Thompson asks how I think Star Wars Rebels will end, and he mentions the Battle of Scarif as a possibility. I think I said in my Rogue One review that I would love for the Battle of Scarif to be the series finale for Star Wars Rebels. I mean, it would of course be very exciting to see the battle from another point of view. It would be a major climax for the show, but more importantly, I think it would thematically tie up Star Wars Rebels very well, because it would be about the rebellion no longer being these individual cells, but this was like the first time that they were a very united effort to fight the Empire. So it would stop being Star Wars Rebels and it would start being Star Wars Rebellion. And maybe that's a good idea for the next animated series, who knows? And for the final patron question of the day, let's do something not related to Star Wars Rebels. Matthew Luke wants to know how much a credit is worth in our own currency. There are a ton of inconsistencies about this. I think you can safely just assume a credit is $1 or something equivalent, because a lot of things in Star Wars are just based on our life. Like a Coruscant day is 24 hours and a Coruscant year is 365 days, and that's what all time in Star Wars is based off of. But on the other hand, if that's true, there are starships out there that are wildly inexpensive, and that just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to try something else. A group of students at Lehigh University calculated how much it would cost to make a Death Star, and they came up with $8.1 quadrillion. Well, in the Star Wars universe, the Death Star was said to have cost $1 trillion. So if you do that math, one credit is the equivalent of about $8,100. Now, again, there's just no hard and fast rule about this. No one has ever specifically said. It's been very inconsistent in Legends. So maybe more digging is required on this. I think it actually might be a good topic for an actual full-fledged video at some point. That's it for patron questions. As always, if you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just hop on over to Patreon where I left you a written response. On to YouTube questions. Sturfelt asks how they might explore Yoda's backstory. Personally, I hope they never do, but if they choose to, I expect it would be in a film. I think there's enough interest around Yoda that they could build a full movie off of that. Personally, though, I've always been fine with not knowing Yoda's history. I kind of like that it's all mysterious, and I'm one of those people that think the less we know about him, the better, and just the more wise he seems almost. I don't really need an origin story for how he grew up, in my opinion, but you never know, down the line they might choose to explore that. We'll just have to wait and see. RML Co. wants to know what non-obvious thing, like Jar Jar or Han shot first, what non-obvious thing would I change or erase from Star Wars canon? I always thought it would have been cool if in Return of the Jedi we swapped out the Ewoks with Wookiees. That was the original plan. I think that would have been very cool because even at that time, Wookiee slaves were a thing and they were supposed to have helped build the Death Star. So to see them rise up from slavery and attack the Empire, and it just seems to make a little more sense that a Wookiee army could overpower the Empire more so than an Ewok one. I think that would have been really cool to see. But we did kind of get that in Aftermath Life Debt to a degree, so it all worked out, but I would have loved to see that on film, basically. T-Brain asks what from Legends I don't want to return to the Star Wars canon. Most of the super weapons, they were overdone in Legends. The Emperor's clones, I never liked that, and I hope he stays dead this time around. Callista Ming, the Jedi computer that Luke fell in love with, that was very weird. There are plenty of things from Legends that I just think deserve to be wiped away. I mean, there were a ton of good things as well, but for every Mara Jade, there was a Callista Ming, and I'm okay with the canon kind of wiping that clean, and now we can pick and choose, like, the Grand Admiral Thrawn's out of there, or, like, the Dr. Aphra series right now took something really obscure from Star Wars Legends, and they're doing it again, but I would say in a more interesting way. You could also argue that the Yoda arc in the Star Wars comics right now is taking something very silly from Star Wars Legends, a living mountain, and they're doing that in a more interesting and exciting way. So I like that the canon can kind of reinterpret some of these things from Star Wars Legends and make them a little cooler. Starkiller100 wants to make sure I'll still be putting videos out while I'm at Celebration. Yes, I will make sure to have videos scheduled to come out through that week. They'll be coming out as regular. But on top of that, my plan is to make videos while I'm at Celebration. So if I'm at the episode 8 panel, for example, and they release a trailer, I will then, probably as we leave the panel, shoot a quick reaction about it so we can get something up fast, and then I'm going to go back to our hotel room or wherever I can and record an actual breakdown like I normally do. The rest of the time, I will be having a meetup or two, just hanging out at the convention center. I plan on buying that 000 and BT1 statue that they showed on the Star Wars show the other day because that looked awesome. And I'll be hugging Garrick Hagan until I'm removed by security. Alex Stern asks if we might see any more classic Star Wars ships like the X-Wing return in episodes 8 or 9. I think the A-Wing has been all but confirmed thanks to behind-the-scenes images. I bet we'll get some new, or I guess more updated TIE designs. I bet we'll see like a First Order version of the TIE Interceptor, or Bomber maybe. I don't know about the Y-Wing because that was already a very outdated design by the time of the Galactic Civil War, so that might be abandoned, but I don't think they're going to throw in too many new ships. Like the old trilogy introduced, like, it was just the TIE Fighter, the X-Wing, and the Y-Wing as starfighters, and then the next one they introduced the TIE Bomber, and then the next one we got the A-Wing and the Interceptor and the B-Wing, so I think they're probably going to trickle this stuff out and hopefully not just jam too much in all at once, but I'm sure we're going to see some classic things get an update. That's all the time I have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or head over to Patreon where we have a weekly Q&A thread. As I mentioned at the start of this video, the app Quid has graciously sponsored today's episode. Quid is an app where you can collect and trade limited edition and super rare digital trading cards, stickers, and most importantly, Funko Pop, which you probably know I'm a huge fan of. They have tons of different brands you can collect, including X-Files, Firefly, Rick and Morty, or even Star Trek if you're a trader. Just kidding, I like Star Trek too. But I grabbed some Funko, and I got Teddy from Bob's Burgers, and then I went over to Firefly because you gotta love that show, and I grabbed Jane, Wash, and Kaylee. Now I'm getting some stickers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and then X-Files because my wife Molly and I are huge fans of those shows. You can use your collections as stickers and messages. So now I'm sending Molly pictures of all her celebrity crushes. Spike from Buffy, Skinner from X-Files, and yeah, Smoking Man too. The app is totally free to use, and you can also trade items with other people on the app in real time. Other brands you can look at include Funko, Family Guy, Breaking Bad, Five Nights at Freddy's, Scream Queens, Arrested Development, Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and more are constantly being released. If you want to check out Quid for yourself, there's a link in the description where you can do exactly that. But until next week, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.